Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Dry Arch podcast. It takes a whole village to raise a child. My name is Diane Douglas, and today we're starting a brand new series on neurodiversity. In this series, we'll be diving into what neurodiversity means, why it matters, and how each of us can help create more inclusive environments for children and adults alike. To guide us through this journey, I'm joined by Colleen O'Donnell. Colleen is the Neurodiversity Champion here at the Dry Arch Centre, and she brings a wealth of insight, experience and passion to this conversation. Welcome, Colleen. It's lovely to have you here with us today. I'm sure our listeners are excited to hear your perspective.
Hello Diane, thank you so much for having me. I've got loads to share, so I'm hoping by the end of this episode your listeners will have a good introduction into the world of neurodiversity.
Perfect. That is exactly what we're hoping for. Let's start with the basics. For anyone who isn't familiar with the term, what does neurodiversity actually mean?
So the definition of neurodiversity describes the natural variations in how human brains work. Just like no two fingerprints are the same, no two brains are the same. Being neurodivergent doesn't mean something is wrong. It simply means that someone's brain works differently from what society often labels as typical. And you'll hear me using the term neurotypical a lot throughout the series. So the neurodiversity umbrella includes autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, Tourette's and more.
So that's what neurodiversity means in a nutshell. I have never heard of the term Neurodiversity Champion before. It's a very unique job title. Can you explain a wee bit more on that?
Yeah, no, it definitely is very unique, and you're not the first person that says that to me. So whenever I'm speaking to families that I work with or my friends or even just the community, I like to break it down. So if you think neuro, that's our brains. Diversity is our differences and our uniqueness. And champion means an advocate. So I like to think of myself as an advocate for neurodiversity. Within my role, I support children and families who are navigating a world often designed for neurotypical people. I educate parents, teachers and professionals about the importance of neurodiversity affirming environments so that all children and young people and adults feel welcome and included in everyday life. A phrase I often use, and one I hear my own children repeating at home now, is that everyone is different. Whether it's food preferences, clothing, textures or sensitivity to sounds, these differences are part of who we are. And I love hearing my children advocate for themselves while also growing up with the understanding that their peers and classmates are different too, and that it's natural not to expect all peers to think or behave in the same way. I think it's just such an important message to get across that everyone is different and that's okay. The world would be a boring place if we were all the same.
I absolutely agree. What a lovely message to pass on.
So traditionally, people would have looked at differences through what is called a medical model of disability, and that would focus on what's wrong and how to fix it. That's why you would sometimes see headlines about a supposed cure for autism. But here at the Dry Arch, we work from the social model of disability, and that says that challenges that neurodivergent people face often come from society's setup and not the person themselves. So for example, fluorescent lights, noisy classrooms or rigid rules can make life harder for a child. But when we adapt environments and put the right supports in place, a child can thrive.
That makes so much sense. Tell us, what's your job within the Dry Arch look like day to day? How do you get all of this information across to your families, to other professionals in the field?
So whenever I started in the Dry Arch about 3 years ago, I received lots of referrals for children with an autism or ADHD diagnosis, or children showing early indicators. The referrals would have came from families themselves, teachers, Senkos, GPs, social workers and health visitors. And at that time, I spent a lot of time doing home visits and quickly noticed I was having the same conversations with families over and over, normally around topics such as sensory behaviours, so it could be sensory seeking behaviours or sensory avoidant behaviours, emotional regulation, safety awareness and impulse control, daily tasks like getting ready for school or doing homework, and of course, school experiences in general were a big topic. Parents often describe what we would call the Coke bottle effect, and that's when children hold everything in during the school day. So, following rules, masking, and trying to fit into social norms. Then they come home and they release all that built up stress and emotion, just like a shaken bottle of Coke. So, after a careful review and a lot of home visits, and seeing an increase in the numbers presenting for support, we realised that we needed to do something bigger to reach the growing numbers. So we created the Neurodiversity Information Sessions for parents, guardians and professionals. And in regards to the Coke bottle effect, we also run emotional regulation programs for parents and their children to attend together. And through these sessions, we try to identify triggers and we practice various emotional regulation strategies.
That sounds incredibly valuable in this world today. What do those sessions cover?
So the information sessions for the parents and professionals contain 3 core subjects, which I created using my background as an occupational therapist. The first session is 2 hours long and it's all about sensory processing and the environment. It covers our 8 sensory systems and it shares practical tips and strategies for home and school. The second session is about executive functioning skills. Again, it's 2 hours long and it covers topics such as planning, organisation, impulse control, and of course, emotional regulation. And again, full of strategies for home and classroom environments. And then the third session is about visuals and transitions. And it shows how different kinds of visuals can make activities and daily routines calmer and more predictable for our children and young people. As well as these workshops, we also run specific training for teaching staff, which combines all 3 of the sessions that I've just mentioned with an extra focus on autism, ADHD and dyslexia. Through these, we explore accommodations that can be implemented in school, such as movement breaks, flexible seating, calm corners and sensory rooms. And one key point that I always like to emphasise is that movement can be so essential for many neurodivergent children. Breaks and playtimes should never be removed as punishment. Sensory rooms too can be so invaluable in helping children to stay regulated throughout the school day. And unfortunately, I've heard of situations where schools restrict neurodivergent children from using the sensory rooms until they have completed their schoolwork. Yet they allow neurotypical children into a sensory room as a reward. This practice is not only unfair, but it also completely misunderstands the purpose of the supports. And that's why I feel so passionate about my role, to share this knowledge and challenge practices that exclude or disadvantage neurodivergent children.
That is such an important reminder. We'll have to bring you back to explore those topics in more depth. Before we finish, do you have any final messages for our listeners here today?
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to get back to explore all those topics. But before I go, I would like to leave the listeners with this thought. Neurodivergent people can often bring incredible strengths. So it could be creativity, innovation, empathy, or humour, and so much more. And some of history's greatest inventors, artists, and leaders thought differently from those around them. But of course, there are challenges too. So a child with ADHD might struggle to sit still, but they may also bring amazing imagination and energy. A child with dyslexia might find reading difficult, but they might excel at problem solving, storytelling or design. And that is why neurodiversity matters. When we recognise and celebrate differences, schools become more inclusive, workplaces become more creative, and communities become more compassionate. So I'd encourage everyone listening, ask yourself, How can you celebrate neurodiversity in your daily life? Maybe it's noticing and valuing a child's unique perspective, advocating for inclusive classrooms, or choosing to celebrate differences instead of trying to fix them.
That's such a powerful message, Colleen. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your knowledge and your passion. And to your listeners, thank you for tuning in. Stay with us for more episodes in our Neurodiversity series, where we'll dig deeper into sensory processing, executive function, and so much more. Until next time, remember, everyone is different and that's okay.